Hello, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel. Today I'm talking about rereading. I've kind of been rereading a few books, reread some Harry Potter recently, and I just it's made me want to reread a few books, so I just wanted to talk about that today. Currently there are two books that I'm rereading. So I am rereading Jane Eyre for an event thing that my mum were going to, which has not been going too well, but not because I'm not as keen on the beginning of Jane Eyre. I like it once she gets to Thornfield Hall, so that's why it's gone a bit slow. And I've been reading other books whilst I've been reading this, and once we're through the orphanage section, I will be happy and I will be reading furiously. And the other book I'm currently rereading, which I mentioned before, is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I'm listening to this on audiobook and kind of reading along sometimes. Recently reread the first Harry Potter because I read the illustrated edition and reread the fifth one and really enjoyed that, and realised that I haven't reread the fourth, fifth and sixth one that much. So picked this one straight up afterwards, and I'm going to be rereading this, although I think I've only read the first chapter. I've only read the chapter where the two ministers meet at the moment, so I guess I can't really say I'm rereading it if it's only one chapter, but yeah, this is getting reread too. So the next book that I really want to reread is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. I was a bit silly with this book. I read it and I wasn't sure whether I could get behind the relationship or not, because I was reading it and obviously you don't know whether the relationship between the two main characters is okay or if it's against the laws of nature kind of thing. So I looked it up straight away on the internet when I finished it to find out whether they were brother and sister or not. Found out and then was like, oh well, I know now, I don't need to read it. So I didn't read the rest of the series, and I've always wanted to, and I've got the rest of the series. Like, if you have a look, they're all here. Well, I've got those three, which is like most of the series anyway. Like, it would keep me going for a while. And I've also got this Clockwork Angel, which I really want to read the Clockwork series, and I've heard that it's so much better than this series. And I think it does appeal to me more, but I'm one of those people who's like a killer for chronology, so like I can't start reading the Clockwork series without reading this series. I could just go straight on to City of Ashes, to be honest. Like, I have read this, so I don't know. I feel like I'll reread it though, because I'll kind of want to do it right, basically. So yeah, I want to reread this, If I Stay by Gail Forman. I read this a really long time ago. I think I was around 13 or 14. It won't take long to reread because the writing's massive and it's only like 200 pages. And I really enjoyed this book. It's about a 17-year-old girl. She's in a coma, and it kind of goes through her memories in her life and whether she should come out of her coma or not, because obviously her family have been seriously injured in this car crash. And I really enjoyed this book when I read it. And then this came out, Where She Went, which is the next one. It's like a sequel to this one. But I can't read this one because I read this one when I was like 13. And then I don't know when I got this one, but I got it a long time after, 2012. Because I know I got it when it came out. So it must have been like 3 or 4 years after reading this. And I just like, I can't remember. I can remember bits of this. I can remember a lot of stuff with the cello, which I really enjoyed, and I can remember things, but I can't properly remember. And I don't want to read this until I've reread this. But it's annoying me that this is on my shelf and I haven't read it, and I do want to read it. So yeah, I need to get these read. The next book I want to reread is A Thousand Splendid Suns by Carlo Tessini. I remember this being one of the first books I read after I like properly got into reading, and I adored it, but I can't remember a lot of the story. I remember it being about a girl who's kind of like sold into marriage. But I can remember some other, I can remember points in the story, but I can't fully remember the story. And it bothers me because I really loved it. I remember just adoring this book so much. And I really want to read The Kite Runner by him, and I think it's And the Mountain Echoes, or The Mountain Echoes, something like that. I really want to read his other books because I love this one, but then when I think about it, I think you might have loved it, but you don't even remember what it's about, so you should reread this one first. So yeah, this one is definitely on the list. The next reread is Pat Barker's Regeneration. I read this for my A-levels. I think it was a piece of coursework about World War One writings. So we did poetry by like Wilfred Owen and Siegfried Sassoon and people like that. And then we did All Quiet on the Western Front, and we did this book called Regeneration. And this is a historical fiction. It's about poets from the First World War. Wilfred Owen is in it, and Siegfried Sassoon. And there's other people that are real, that actually existed in it, and some people that didn't. There's the doctor in it is called William Rivers. He's a psychiatrist, and he was real as well. And I think he was at the forefront of trying to treat people with neurasthenia, the shell shock, basically. So yeah, I remember thoroughly enjoying this book. Like, I thought it was just amazing. But obviously, because I was at college and they gave us this book, I didn't really look into this book. So a couple of years later, I was in a shop and found these two and realised that this was a trilogy that Pat Barker wrote. And so I really want to read the second and third books, but I read this like 5 years ago. And to be fair, I can remember the story pretty well, but I'd like to reread it before I go to these ones, which seems to be the ongoing story with this video. So yeah, I want to reread this so that I can reread these. The next two books are kind of not rereads. The first one is The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I don't know if I can say this is a reread because I've actually read up to page 97 in the book. It's just that I didn't finish it. And I don't know why, because I was enjoying it. I think it was one of those where I'd read a lot of classics around this time and I just wasn't in the mood for another one. So I had about 100 pages of this left. And I can remember what happened, to be fair, so I don't know if I will just pick it up from where I'm up to and carry on reading it. I'm not sure, but it was a year ago that I was reading it, so it might be that I need to reread the whole thing. I'm not sure, but that is on the list again. And the other one is The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter. This book I did, again for my A-level, I did an extended project qualification, I think it's called, on Byronic heroes in literature. So I did about Heathcliff and Wuthering Heights, Mr. Rochester and Jane Eyre, and I did about the first story in this collection, which is The Bloody Chamber, and I did about the guy in it, the Bluebeard guy. And I really, really enjoyed it. However, I did absolutely destroy this book, which is sad. But I think I read another story after that one about a baby in the snow, and there might have been some wolves, I can't remember. But basically, yeah, I only read that one because that was the only one I was studying. But afterwards, I was like, oh, I want to read the rest of the collection. So yeah, I will be... I'm saying reread. I'm going to reread The Bloody Chamber, but then I'm going to read the rest of it. First time read, but yeah, I'm putting it in anyway. The next two are poetry collections. The first is Scary Tale by Owen Shears. This is another one we did in college, and we did most of the poems in this collection at college, but we didn't do all of them, and I remember adoring this collection. I thought it was absolutely brilliant, but I know that I've not completely finished it. So yeah, I want to reread this whole collection. I think I'm going to read this really soon. I might read this month actually. I think it'd be quite good to split up reading Jane Eyre, because obviously that is quite a big book and classically written, so sometimes you need a book to kind of split it up, and I think a poem a night might be really good at that. And the other one is the Selected Poems of Rochester. We studied Rochester in satire at university, and I can't even explain how funny his poems are. They are quite disgustingly dirty and sexual, so if you are not into that, if you are easily squeamish, that sort of thing, don't read it. But I thought they were absolutely hilarious, and yeah, I think we studied about 20 of them, but there were obviously a few that we didn't study, so yeah, I want to read the whole collection, reread the ones that we did in class because they were hilarious, especially The Imperfect Enjoyment. That was really funny. I think it was called To His Coy Mistress, that was funny as well. A Ramble in St James's Park was funny. Fair Chloris in a Pigsty Lay, that's funny as well. Yes, there were a few really, really funny ones in this collection, and I just want to read the whole thing because I really enjoyed it. The only thing is they are sometimes quite complicated in understanding them, so I'm gonna, like, as I read them, I might have to like research them online to try and like decipher what's going on, and make sure I'm getting all the allusions, because there are a lot of allusions to the time because it's a satire of the period, so obviously that makes it a bit more difficult to just sit back and read, but I do want to reread the whole thing because it was amazing. The next book I need to reread is the first half of A Dance with Dragons, part 1, which is Dreams and Dust by George R. R. Martin. I have read this book, but I haven't read the second half of Dance with Dragons, which is part 2, After the Feast, and I read it quite a while ago. And I kept meaning to read it, but I was doing my dissertation on Game of Thrones, so every time I had time to read Game of Thrones, I was like, I need to be reading stuff that's obviously going to help with the degree and the dissertation, and not these, because my dissertation only went from A Game of Thrones to A Feast for Crows, so it didn't actually include these books. I might be being a little bit hopeful, but I think The Winds of Winter is going to be out within the next year or two, so I would like to have reread these by then. I know that a lot of people think he's just going to never ever put them out, but I think they're going to be out in the next year or two. So yeah, I'm going to reread these in preparation. Last one, I am not too sure how much I want to reread. I do not want to reread the whole series because it's pretty dang big. But I haven't read this one, and there's the last one after this. I'm one of those people who needs closure, and I know that this series is finished, so I need to finish it myself, even though I kind of think it started losing steam and not being as good as it used to be. March is about this girl called Zoe, and she goes to the House of Night school, and it's a school for vampires. Bit like Hogwarts, but for vampire forms. And yeah, I read this. I've read every book here except the last one. But when I read Hidden, which, how annoying is it that they changed the books to look like this when all of them used to look like this? Really pissed me off that they changed the editions because they look ridiculous on my shelf now. Anyway, I read this one and was kind of like, what's going on? I was having to look on Wikipedia to remember the plot of the last book, which kind of annoyed me. So I haven't read Revealed yet, but I'm kind of like, for the way this one went, and I can't remember what was in this one now, I kind of need to reread a few, and then the last one after it I obviously want to read, but I don't want to reread the whole series, so I think I might be tempted to read from Tempted onwards. That's clever. And just reread these ones. But I'm not sure. I might go from Burned instead. I don't know. I'm just going to reread a few just so that I remember the story enough to finish the series. They are all the books that I want to reread. Obviously there's quite a few, so I'm not going to be rereading them all in the next few days, but I think within the next year I want to have reread a lot of them. I want to definitely be rereading If I Stay, because I want to read the second one. Definitely rereading City of Bones. Definitely rereading Jane Eyre and Harry Potter, obviously. And definitely rereading the poetry and the Game of Thrones books. They are the ones that in the next year I want to have definitely 100% reread. So yeah, that was my video on rereading, and thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!